Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the green glow of her monitor. The night shift on Cerberus Station was always quiet, but tonight felt different. She had been tracking deep space signals for 3 years, and most nights brought nothing but cosmic background noise and the occasional merchant ship transmission. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago. Outside the observation deck, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Cerberus Station sat at the very edge of human space, a lonely outpost watching for anything that might threaten the colonies back home. Most days, Lisa wondered if anyone would even notice if the station disappeared tomorrow. A sharp beep made her jump. Her console lit up with new data. Lisa leaned forward, her heart beating faster. The signal was coming from the Veil Nebula, a dangerous region that no human ship had ever successfully navigated. The gravitational fields there could tear apart any vessel foolish enough to try. But this was not random noise. The signal repeated every 43 seconds, precise as clockwork. Lisa ran it through the standard filters, but the pattern made no sense. It was not human, and it was not from any known alien species. Humanity had met only 2 other intelligent races in their expansion to the stars, and this signal matched neither of their communication methods. Lisa grabbed her communicator and called Dr. Kevin Blake. The xenolinguist lived in the research section of the station, probably buried in some ancient text about dead civilizations. He answered on the 5th ring, sounding annoyed. "This better be important, Martinez. I was in the middle of something. Kevin, you need to get down here right now. I have a signal, and it's not like anything we have seen before." Another false alarm? "Lisa, we went through this last month with that pulsar data. This is different. Trust me." Kevin Blake arrived. 20 minutes later, his gray hair messy from sleep and his shirt wrinkled. He was a thin man in his 50s who had spent most of his career studying languages that no one spoke anymore. The other crew members sometimes joked that Kevin knew more about dead aliens than living humans. "Show me what you have," Kevin said, settling into the chair next to Lisa. Lisa played the signal. The strange pattern filled the room, a series of mathematical pulses that seemed almost musical. Kevin listened for several minutes, his expression growing more serious with each repetition. "How long has this been transmitting?" he asked. The signal strength suggested it has been traveling for a very long time, maybe thousands of years. Kevin pulled up his analysis software and began running the signal through various filters. The pattern uses prime numbers as a base structure. That suggests intelligence. No natural phenomenon creates patterns like this. Can you decode it? Maybe. Give me some time. Kevin worked through the night while Lisa monitored other frequencies. The station was small, with only 12 crew members, and most of them slept through the night shift. The captain, an old military man named John Peters, would want a full report in the morning. As dawn approached on the station's artificial day cycle, Kevin suddenly sat up straight in his chair. "I think I have something," he said, his voice shaking with excitement. "What does it say?" Kevin pointed to his screen where lines of translated text appeared. "It's a distress call. An old one. Listen to this." He read aloud. "We are the last. Our worlds burn while we hide in the dark. They consume the light of stars and leave nothing behind. We have fought for 10,000 cycles, but we grow weak. They move closer to our final sanctuary. Please, anyone who receives this message, help us. We cannot hold much longer." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "Who sent this?" "Unknown. The language structure is unlike anything in our databases. But there's more." Kevin scrolled down through more translated text. "They call themselves the Keepers. They say they have guarded something important for millions of years, but now they are dying. And who are they? The ones consuming stars? The message calls them the Devourers. According to this, they move from galaxy to galaxy, feeding on stellar energy. They leave behind only darkness." Lisa stared at the translation, trying to process what she was reading. "Kevin, if this message is thousands of years old, what happened to the people who sent it?" "I don't know. But there's something else. The message includes star charts, coordinates." "Where?" Kevin highlighted a section of the text. "The Veil Nebula. Right where the signal is coming from." Captain Peters was not happy about being woken up before his usual time, but his attitude changed quickly when he read Kevin's translation. Peters was a career military officer who had seen combat in the border wars with the Centauri colonies. He understood threats better than most people. "You're certain this is accurate?" Peters asked, looking at the printout. "As certain as I can be without more data," Kevin replied. "The mathematical structure is consistent throughout the message. This is not a hoax." Peters walked to the observation window and looked out toward the Veil Nebula. From this distance, it appeared as a faint patch of reddish light against the black of space. "If these devourers are real and if they're still out there, we need to warn Earth immediately." Lisa had been thinking the same thing. "Captain, what if they're not just in the Veil Nebula? What if they're moving toward human space?" Peters turned, back to face them. "Then we have a bigger problem than a distress call from an ancient civilization." The captain activated the station's long-range transmitter and opened a direct channel to Earth Fleet Command. The message would take several hours to reach the inner systems, but it would carry news that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. As Peters began recording his report, Lisa looked back at her monitor. The signal from the Veil Nebula continued its steady pulse, a cry for help that had traveled across space for millennia. Someone out there had called for aid, and now humanity had heard their plea. But as Lisa watched the distant stars through the observation deck window, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Several of the bright points of light in the direction of the Veil Nebula seemed dimmer than they had been the night before. Stars, it seemed, were beginning to die. Admiral Susan Ward stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the emergency session of the Colonial Council through multiple video screens. Politicians from dozens of worlds argued back and forth about the strange message from Cerberus Station. Some called it a hoax. Others demanded immediate military action. Most seemed more concerned about their own careers than the possible threat from space. Ward had been in the military for 30 years. She had fought pirates in the Outer Rim and commanded fleets during the trade wars. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. An ancient alien race calling for help and something called the Devourers that could kill stars themselves. "Admiral, we need your recommendation," said President Hayes from the main screen. The president looked tired. The emergency session had been going on for 6 hours. Ward stepped forward. "Madam President, I believe we should send a reconnaissance mission to the Veil Nebula. We need to know what happened to these keepers and whether the threat is real." Senator Morrison from New Angeles shook his head. "Admiral, you're talking about sending our people into one of the most dangerous regions of space based on a signal that might be thousands of years old. Whatever was out there is probably dead by now." "That's exactly why we need to investigate," Ward replied. "If the Devourers killed an entire civilization, we need to know how they did it and whether they're coming this way." The debate continued for another hour before President Hayes made the decision. "Admiral Ward, you have authorization for Operation Lighthouse, but I want a small force only. We cannot risk a major fleet in unknown space." 3 days later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, watching his crew prepare for the most dangerous mission of their careers. The Valiant was a heavy cruiser built for long-range exploration and combat. Her crew of 200 were among the best in the fleet. "Final systems check complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Amy Torres from the engineering station. Torres was young but brilliant, the kind of engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. She had volunteered for this mission despite offers from safer postings. "Navigation ready," said Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cooper from the tactical station. Cooper was a veteran of the border wars, calm under pressure and deadly accurate with the ship's weapons. If they ran into trouble, he would be their first line of defense. Dr. Nicole Gray looked up from her science station. The xenobiologist had spent years studying alien life forms, but she had never expected to search for an entire lost civilization. "All scientific equipment is online, Captain. We're ready to record whatever we find out there." Morrison nodded to his crew. These people had followed him through 3 years of patrol duty on the frontier. Now they were heading into the unknown together. "Take us out, Lieutenant Torres." The Valiant engaged her experimental jump drive and disappeared from normal space. The new technology allowed ships to travel much faster than the old fusion drives, but it had never been tested in the dangerous gravitational fields of the Veil Nebula. 2 days later, they emerged from jump space at the edge of the nebula. What they found shocked everyone on the bridge. "My God," whispered Dr. Gray, staring at her sensor readings. The space around them was filled with the ruins of an ancient civilization. Massive structures drifted in the void, broken and dark. Some were clearly ships, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Others appeared to be space stations or orbital cities, their surfaces scarred by some terrible weapon. "Captain, I'm reading dozens of dead worlds," reported Cooper. "The planets are still there, but they're frozen. No atmosphere, no energy signatures." Morrison walked to the main view screen. In the distance, he could see the faint glow of stars, but they seemed wrong somehow. Too dim, too red. "Torres, what's the status of those stars?" The engineer ran a full spectral analysis. "Sir, they're dying. The fusion reactions are unstable, like something has been draining their energy." "How many?" "All of them, Captain. Every star in this region is in the final stages of collapse." Dr. Gray worked frantically at her station, analyzing the wreckage around them. "Captain, these ruins are ancient. Some of them might be millions of years old. But the damage patterns are consistent. Whatever attacked these civilizations used the same methods." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. They were looking at the remains of an entire region of space, stripped of life and energy by something that could kill stars. "Sir, I'm detecting a signal," said Cooper. "It's coming from deeper in the nebula." "The same signal Cerberus Station picked up?" "No, sir. This one is different. Weaker, but it's definitely artificial." Morrison made his decision. "Plot a course toward the signal. But stay alert. Whatever did this to these worlds might still be out there." The Valiant moved deeper into the graveyard of civilizations. They passed more ruins, more dead worlds. Some of the planets showed signs of having once supported life. Cities, roads, evidence of agriculture, all of it frozen and lifeless now. "Captain, I'm getting readings from a large structure ahead," reported Torres. "It's massive, bigger than anything we've seen so far." The structure appeared on their view screen as they approached. It was a ring, hundreds of kilometers across, surrounding a dying red star. The ring was clearly artificial, covered with cities and docking bays and energy collectors, but only a small section of it still showed signs of power. "My readings show life signs," said Dr. Gray, excitement in her voice. "There are people alive on that structure." Morrison opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Valiant. We received your distress signal. Please, respond." For several minutes there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers, speaking in the same alien language they had heard in the original message. Dr. Gray quickly ran the voice through their translation software. "Captain, they're saying impossible. You came. After so long, someone finally came." A new voice spoke, this one in heavily accented but understandable English. "Human ship, this is Elder Zefka of the Keeper Council. We have been waiting for 3,000 years for someone to answer our call. Welcome to our final sanctuary." Morrison looked at his crew. They had found the source of the distress signal, but they had also found something much more important. They had found survivors. "Elder Zefka, we are here to help, but we need to understand what happened to your people and what threat we might be facing." "Captain Morrison, what happened here will happen to your galaxy as well. The Devourers have already begun their approach to your worlds. We estimate you have perhaps 1 year before they reach your home system." The bridge fell silent. 1 year before Earth itself faced the same fate as the dead worlds around them. "How do we stop them?" Morrison asked. "That, Captain, is why we have waited so long for someone to hear our call. We know how to stop the Devourers, but the price is higher than any civilization has been willing to pay. Until now." Elder Zefka stood before Captain Morrison in the docking bay of the Ring World. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless years. Behind him, other keepers worked at strange machines, their movements careful and precise. "Your species is very young," Zefka said, his voice carrying a sadness that made Morrison uncomfortable. "You have not yet learned that some victories require terrible sacrifices." Dr. Gray stepped forward with her recording equipment. "Elder, we need to understand what we're facing. What exactly are the Devourers?" Zefka led them through corridors, filled with ancient technology. The walls were covered with star charts and mathematical equations that hurt to look at. The Devourers are not from this reality, not entirely. They exist in the spaces between dimensions, feeding on the energy that holds atoms together. When they consume a star, they drain its fusion fire and leave behind only cold matter. Morrison tried to understand. How do they do that? How can anything feed on stellar energy? They are parasites that exist across multiple layers of space-time. Your scientists understand only 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. The Devourers move through 11 dimensions, allowing them to reach into the hearts of stars and drain their power. Amy Torres examined one of the keeper machines. "Elder, this technology is incredible. How long has your civilization existed?" "We have guarded this galaxy for 7 million years, Zefka replied. "We were once the servants of an even older race, the Architects, who built the first defenses against the Devourers. When the Architects transcended to pure energy, they left us to continue their work." The group entered a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing the galaxy. Red dots marked dead systems, and Morrison could see that they formed a pattern, moving steadily inward toward the center of the galaxy. The Devourers follow the same strategy in every galaxy they invade, Zefka explained. They start at the edges and work inward, consuming stellar energy to fuel their reproduction. Each time they feed, they create more of their kind. Nicole Gray studied the display. "How many galaxies have they destroyed?" "All of them, eventually. The Devourers have consumed thousands of galaxies over billions of years. We are the first civilization to slow their advance, but we have not stopped them." Morrison felt sick. "What about the other civilizations in our galaxy? Are there others fighting them?" "No. The Devourers learned from their encounters with us. In your galaxy, they began by eliminating all advanced civilizations first, leaving only younger species like yourselves. You are alone." Torres pointed to a section of the display where the red dots seemed to stop. "What happened here? It looks like their advance was halted." Zefka's expression grew even sadder. "That is where we made our first great sacrifice. We destroyed an entire star cluster, turning 12 suns into weapons that killed hundreds of Devourers. But the cost was enormous. Billions of our people died and entire worlds were lost forever." "Destroyed star clusters?" Morrison asked. "How? Is that possible?" "We learned to destabilize stellar cores, turning them into quantum explosions that can damage the Devourers across multiple dimensions. But each weapon requires the complete destruction of a solar system." The room fell silent as the humans realized what Zefka was suggesting. "You want us to destroy our own star systems," Morrison said quietly. "It is the only way. The Devourers cannot be fought with conventional weapons. They exist partially outside normal space, immune to your missiles and energy beams. Only stellar scale. Explosions can harm them." Dr. Gray shook her head. "Elder, humanity has colonies in dozens of systems. Millions of people would die. And billions will die if the Devourers are not stopped. Captain Morrison, your species has perhaps 1 year before they reach your home system. After that, they will consume your sun and everything in it." Torres walked closer to the galaxy display. "Show us exactly where they are now." Zefka manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a section near the outer rim. "Here. They are moving through the Kepler region, consuming every star they encounter. At their current rate of advance, they will reach your solar system in 10 to 12 months. Morrison felt the weight of command pressing down on him. "Elder, you said you know how to stop them permanently. What did you mean?" "The Devourers are controlled by a central intelligence. a vast mind that exists in the dark space between galaxies. If this intelligence is destroyed, all devourers will lose their coordination and can be defeated individually. Where is this intelligence? In the void between your galaxy and Andromeda, but reaching it would require a journey of millions of years, even with your fastest ships. Amy Torres suddenly looked up from a keeper console she had been examining. Elder, this technology could change that. These dimensional drives could allow travel between galaxies in months instead of millennia. Zefka nodded. Yes, but such a journey would be one way. The ship making the attempt would have to carry enough stellar energy to power the weapons needed to destroy the central intelligence. It would be a suicide mission. Morrison paced around the chamber, trying to process everything he had learned. So our choices are to sacrifice entire star systems to build weapons, or send a ship on a suicide mission to another galaxy. There is a third option, Zefka said quietly. You could run. Load your people into generation ships and flee to another galaxy. The Devourers move slowly. You might have thousands of years before they follow. And abandon everyone who can't. Escape? Leave billions to die? Morrison shook his head. That's not an option. Nicole Gray was studying biological data from the Keeper databases. Elder, how many of your people are left? Fewer than 10,000. This ring world is our last sanctuary. When our star finally dies, we will die with it. Why don't you come with us? Help us fight them? Zefka touched a control panel, and the hologram showed the ring world systems. Most of them were dark, failing after millions of years of operation. We are dying, Dr. Gray. Our bodies are failing. Our technology is breaking down. We have perhaps months left, maybe less. Morrison made his decision. Elder, we need everything you can teach us about fighting the Devourers. Every piece of technology, every tactical advantage. If humanity is going to face this threat, we need to be prepared. I will share all our knowledge, Captain. But first you must understand the full scope of what you are choosing. Come, let me show you what it means to turn stars into weapons. Zefka led them to another chamber where massive screens showed recordings of past battles. The humans watched in horror as entire solar systems collapsed into artificial black holes, their energy channeled into dimensional weapons that tore holes in space itself. This is what victory looks like against the Devourers, Zefka said. Light itself becomes darkness and worlds die so that galaxies might live. Are your people prepared for such choices? Morrison looked at his crew, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. But he also saw determination. Humanity had never backed down from a fight, no matter how hopeless it seemed. Elder, we'll find a way. We always do. I hope you are right. Captain Morrison, for all our sakes, I hope you are right. President Linda Hayes stood at the window of her office in New Geneva, looking out at the city below. People walked the streets, went to work, lived their lives without knowing that their world might end within a year. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on her like a physical force. The emergency meeting had been going on for 6 hours. Military leaders, scientists, and politicians from across human space filled the conference room, all arguing about Captain Morrison's report from the Veil Nebula. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. Secretary Paul Green slammed his hand on the table. Madam President, we need to begin immediate evacuation of the outer colonies. If these Devourers are real, we should get as many people as possible away from the danger zones. General Chris Murphy shook his head. Paul, you're talking about moving millions of people. Where would they go? And what happens when the Devourers reach the inner systems? Do we just keep running forever? Dr. Kevin Blake, who had been brought in from Cerberus Station, stood up with a datapad in his hands. The Keeper archives contain detailed information about the Devourers' behavior patterns. They don't just consume stars randomly. They target systems with the highest energy output first, then work their way down to smaller stars. What does that mean for us? Hayes asked. It means Sewell will be one of their primary targets. Our sun is exactly the type of star they prefer to feed on. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. Earth itself was on the Devourer's menu. Admiral, Ward activated a holographic display showing human space. Based on the Keeper data, I've calculated the Devourer's most likely approach route. They'll hit the Centauri colonies first, then move through the trade routes toward the inner systems. How long do we have? Hayes asked. 10 months, maybe. 11. After that, they reach Sol. Dr. Maria Santos, the head of Earth's Stellar Physics program, had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now she spoke up. The Keeper technology for converting stars into weapons is real. I've been studying the data Captain Morrison transmitted. It's possible to destabilize a stellar core and channel the explosion into a focused quantum burst. General, Murphy leaned forward. Dr. Santos, are you saying we can actually build these weapons? Yes, but the cost would be enormous. Each weapon requires the complete destruction of a star system. Everything in that system dies. Secretary Green stood up angrily. You're talking about genocide. We would be killing billions of our own people. And if we don't build these weapons, the Devourers will kill everyone anyway, Murphy replied. At least this way, some of humanity survives. Hayes felt sick listening to the debate. Both men were right, and both were wrong. How could she choose between certain death for billions and possible survival for the species? Dr. Blake cleared his throat. There might be another option. The Keepers mentioned that the Devourers are controlled by a central intelligence in the void between galaxies. If we could destroy that intelligence, a suicide mission across millions of light years, Admiral Ward said. Even with Keeper technology, whoever goes on that mission won't be coming back. But it would save everyone else, Blake replied. Hayes walked back to the window. Outside, children played in a park while their parents watched from benches. Normal life continuing while she made decisions that would determine the fate of the human race. What about uninhabited systems? She asked, suddenly. Could we use stars that don't have colonies around them? Dr. Santos nodded. Yes, but there aren't many systems with stars powerful enough to create effective weapons. Most of the suitable candidates are in inhabited regions. Admiral Ward pulled up another display. I've identified 12 systems that could be converted into weapons. 3 of them are uninhabited. The other 9 have colonies ranging from mining outposts to major industrial worlds. How many people are we talking about? Approximately 40 million people across the 9 inhabited systems. The number hit Hayes like a punch to the stomach. 40 million lives. But if they did nothing, billions would die when the Devourers reached the core worlds. General Murphy activated his communicator. Madam President, I'm getting reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Something is happening in the Kepler sector. The main screen switched to a live feed from a military observation post. The image showed a star that seemed to be flickering. Its light growing dimmer by the minute. That's Kepler 442, Dr. Santos said, her voice shaking. It's a G-class star with no inhabited planets, but it was perfectly stable yesterday. As they watched, the star's light faded completely. Where once a bright sun had burned, only darkness remained. The Devourers, Hayes whispered. They're moving. Faster than we thought. Admiral Ward was already issuing orders through his communicator. All fleet units in the outer rim begin immediate withdrawal to defensive positions. Civilian shipping is to avoid the Kepler sector until further notice. Dr. Blake was studying the Keeper data on his tablet. According to their records, when the Devourers consume a star, they absorb its entire mass energy content. That power is used to reproduce. One consumed star can create dozens of new Devourers. How long before they create more? Hayes asked. Days, maybe weeks. Each reproduction cycle makes them stronger and faster. Hayes made her decision. Admiral Ward, begin Operation Starfire. We'll start with the uninhabited systems first. Dr. Santos, I want your team working around the clock to perfect the stellar conversion process. Madam President, Secretary Green protested, you're authorizing the destruction of star systems, the environmental impact alone. Paul, if we don't do this, there won't be an environment left to worry about. Hayes turned to address the entire room. I'm declaring a state of emergency across all human space. We have less than a year to prepare for the greatest threat our species has ever faced. General Murphy saluted. What about the inhabited systems? Do we evacuate them first? Begin evacuation immediately, but prioritize the systems we'll need to convert. And Chris, I want our best people working on that long-range mission to destroy the Central Intelligence. If we can end this threat permanently, it might be worth the risk. Admiral Ward nodded. I'll put together a list of volunteers for the mission. It won't be hard to find people willing to go. Why? Hayes asked. Because everyone knows what happens if we fail. Better to die trying than to die hiding. Dr. Santos was already making calculations on her tablet. Madam President, the first stellar weapon could be ready in 3 months. But we'll need massive amounts of exotic matter to stabilize the conversion process. Where do we get exotic matter? From the cores of neutron stars. It's dangerous to harvest, but the Keeper archives show us how to do it safely. Hayes looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Fear, determination, and grim resolve mixed together in their expressions. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to attempt something no species has ever done before. We're going to turn our own stars into weapons to fight an enemy that exists outside normal reality. The cost will be terrible, but the alternative is extinction. She paused, thinking of the children playing in the park below. God help us all. Outside the window, the sun continued to shine down on Earth, unaware that it might soon become humanity's final battlefield in a war for the survival of everything they had ever known or loved. Tyler Ross stood on the bridge of the cargo ship Phoenix, watching the massive star Wolf 359 through the reinforced viewport. The star burned orange-red in the darkness of space, completely unaware that it would be dead within hours. Tyler had blown up bridges, buildings, and space stations during his military career, but he had never destroyed an entire star before. Final countdown to stellar conversion begins in 30 minutes, announced Dr. Maria Santos over the communication system. She was aboard the command ship Endeavor, monitoring the operation from a safe distance. All personnel confirm readiness. Tyler checked his equipment one more time. The Keeper technology was strange, almost alive in how it responded to human touch. The conversion device looked like a metal sphere covered in glowing symbols that hurt to look at directly. According to the Keeper archives, once activated, it would burrow into the star's core and begin the process that would turn Wolf 359 into a weapon. Tyler, you sure about this? Asked Lieutenant Jim Hayes over the radio. Hayes was piloting the escape shuttle that would pick up Tyler after the device was planted. We could still find another way. No, we can't, Tyler replied. The Devourers are only 6 months out from Sol now. We need every weapon we can get. The past 3 months had been a nightmare for humanity. The Devourers had consumed 12 more stars, moving steadily toward the core systems. Each consumed star created more Devourers, and their advance was speeding up. The evacuation of the outer colonies was barely ahead of the growing darkness. Phoenix, this is Control. You are clear for final approach to Wolf 359, came the voice of Admiral Ward from the command ship. Tyler engaged the ship's engines and began his descent toward the star. The heat was incredible, even through the Phoenix's advanced shielding. Sweat ran down his face as he fought to keep the ship stable in the star's gravity well. Approaching the chromosphere, he reported, temperature rising past safety limits. Tyler, get that device planted and get out of there, Dr. Santos said urgently. The star's magnetic field is fluctuating. We might have less time than we thought. Tyler fired the conversion device into the star's surface. The metal sphere disappeared into the burning gas, carrying with it the power to turn a sun into a weapon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star began to change. It's working, Tyler said, watching the star's surface ripple with strange patterns of light. The conversion has begun. Phoenix, extract immediately, Admiral Ward ordered. Stellar collapse will begin in approximately 10 minutes. Tyler spun his ship around and fired the engines at maximum power. Behind him, Wolf 359 was starting to die. The star's light began to shift from orange to blue, as the Keeper technology forced its nuclear fires to burn in ways nature never intended. Lieutenant Hayes brought the escape shuttle alongside the Phoenix, just as Tyler's ship began to break. Apart from the heat and radiation, Tyler jumped from the airlock into the shuttle. watching his ship melt away in the star's growing fury. "Clear the danger zone," Dr. Santos announced. "All ships maximum distance. Stellar detonation in 30 seconds." The human fleet retreated to the edge of the system as Wolf 359 reached the final stage of conversion. The star collapsed in on itself, then exploded outward in a burst of quantum energy that lit up space for millions of kilometers. But this was not a normal supernova. The explosion opened holes in reality itself, revealing the dark spaces between dimensions where the Devourers lived. "Conversion successful," Dr. Santos reported. "We now have our first stellar weapon. The quantum field will remain active for approximately 6 months before the effect dissipates." Tyler floated in the shuttle, exhausted from his ordeal. Through the viewport, he could see the remains of Wolf 359. Where once a star had burned, now only a swirling vortex of energy remained, beautiful and terrible at the same time. "One down, 11 to go," Tyler said quietly. 3 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the Ring World, watching Elder Zefka work at a dying console. The Keeper leader looked even more frail than before, his pale blue skin almost transparent with age and exhaustion. "The final data transfer is complete," Zefka said, his voice barely a whisper. "Everything we know about the Devourers, their weaknesses, their central intelligence is now stored in your databases." Morrison nodded. "Elder, your people's sacrifice won't be forgotten." "Do not speak of sacrifice yet, Captain. The hardest choices still lie ahead." Dr. Nicole Gray looked up from her workstation. She had been coordinating with Keeper scientists to download millions of years of accumulated knowledge. "Elder, the information about the Central Intelligence location is incomplete. How do we find it in the void between galaxies?" Zefka touched another control, and a holographic map appeared showing the space between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. "The intelligence moves constantly, but it follows patterns. It feeds on the dark matter streams that flow between galaxies. Your ship will need to follow these streams to locate the target." Amy Torres examined the technical specifications for the intergalactic mission. "Elder, this journey would take at least 2 years, even with the dimensional drive technology, and the ship would need to carry enough firepower to destroy something the size of a small moon." "Yes, Lieutenant. The intelligence is vast, protected by thousands of lesser Devourers. The attack ship would need to be heavily armed and completely self-sufficient." Morrison studied the star charts showing the Devourers advance towards Sol. "How much time do we have before they reach Earth?" 3 months, perhaps less. They are accelerating as they consume more energy. Nicole Gray received an urgent message on her communicator. "Captain, Admiral Ward is reporting that the Devourers have reached the Centauri system. They're attacking Alpha Centauri now." Morrison felt his stomach drop. Centauri was humanity's oldest colony, home to over 50 million people. "What's the status of the evacuation?" "Incomplete. They estimate 20 million people are still on the surface when the attack began." Zefka closed his large, dark eyes. "It has begun. The final assault on your species. Elder, we need to accelerate our timeline. How soon can the intergalactic mission launch?" "The ship is being prepared at your Luna shipyards. But Captain, you must understand that whoever goes on this mission will not return. Even if they succeed in destroying the Central Intelligence, they will be stranded millions of light years from home." Morrison nodded grimly. "I understand. I'll be commanding that mission myself." "Jake, no," Amy Torres said. "We need you here to coordinate the defense of Sol. Amy, if this mission fails, there won't be a Sol to defend. Someone has to go, and it might as well be me." Dr. Gray received another urgent message. "Captain, Admiral Ward is reporting that 5 of our stellar weapons are now active. Wolf 359, Ross 128, and 3 others have been successfully converted. What about the inhabited systems? Evacuation is proceeding, but it's going to be close. The Devourers are moving faster than we expected." Zefka struggled to his feet, supported by one of his assistants. "Captain Morrison, there is something else you must know. The Central Intelligence is not just controlling the Devourers. It is learning from every civilization they consume. It knows about your species now and it is adapting its strategy. What does that mean? It means the devourers attacking your systems are not following their usual patterns. They are specifically targeting your industrial worlds and military bases first. The intelligence is trying to prevent you from completing your weapons. Morrison felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Humanity was running out of time and their enemy was getting smarter. Elder, how long does your ring world have left? Our star will die within days. When it does, the last of the keepers will die with it. Morrison looked around at the ancient technology that had guarded the galaxy for millions of years. Soon, it would all be gone, and humanity would be truly alone against the darkness. Elder Zefka, your people have fought longer and harder than anyone should have to. Rest now. We'll take it from here. The old keeper smiled sadly. I hope your species is ready for what comes next, Captain. The universe is watching to see if humanity can succeed where all others have failed. Outside the ring world, the dying star flickered like a candle in the wind, its light growing weaker with each passing hour. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Infinity, watching Earth grow smaller through the view screen. The massive ship was humanity's greatest achievement, built in just 6 months, using keeper technology and the combined resources of every human world. Behind them, the solar system prepared for the final battle. Jump drive charging, reported Amy Torres from the engineering station. She had insisted on joining the intergalactic mission despite Morrison's protests. Will reach the void between galaxies in 72 hours. Dr. Nicole Gray worked at her science station, monitoring the quantum signatures that would guide them to the Devourer Central Intelligence. Captain, I'm tracking the dark matter streams Elder Zefka described. The intelligence should be following the main current between our galaxy and Andromeda. Morrison nodded, but his thoughts were on the battle they were leaving behind. Admiral Ward commanded the defense of Sol, with 5 stellar weapons positioned around the solar system. The converted stars hung in space like deadly flowers, their quantum fields ready to tear holes in reality itself. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Ward, said Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cooper. Ward's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the command center of Luna Base buzzed with activity. Jake, the Devourers have entered the outer solar system. We count over 300 of them, more than we've ever seen in one place. What's the status of the civilian evacuation? Complete. Every human being in the solar system is either in deep bunkers or aboard evacuation ships. If this goes badly, at least some of our people will survive. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Susan, if we succeed in destroying the Central Intelligence, the Devourers should lose coordination. That's your chance to finish them off with the stellar weapons. And if you don't succeed, then humanity's future depends on how well you fight here. The transmission ended, and Morrison returned his attention to the mission ahead. The Infinity carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but they were heading into the unknown to face an enemy that had consumed entire galaxies. Jump drive. Ready? Torres announced. All systems green. Take us out, Lieutenant. The Infinity disappeared from normal space, beginning the longest journey in human history. 2 days later, they emerged in the void between galaxies. The emptiness was overwhelming. No stars, no planets, just the faint glow of distant galaxy clusters millions of light years away. But their sensors immediately detected something else. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead, Dr. Gray reported. It's bigger than anything we've encountered. On the view screen they could see it. The Devourer Central Intelligence looked like a living mountain floating in space, its surface covered with structures that hurt to look at directly. Around it, hundreds of smaller Devourers moved in complex patterns like worker bees around their queen. My God, whispered Cooper. It's the size of a small planet. Morrison studied the tactical display. Amy, how long until we're in weapons range? 30 minutes at current speed. But Captain, they've detected us. The smaller Devourers are moving. To intercept. All hands battle stations. This is what we came here to do. The battle began as soon as the Infinity entered the Devourer formation. The smaller creatures attacked from all sides, their forms shifting between dimensions as they tried to drain the ship's power. But the Infinity was protected by Keeper technology, its hull reinforced with quantum barriers that kept the Devourers from reaching the ship's energy core. "Firing quantum torpedoes," Cooper announced. The weapons, built using knowledge stolen from dead stars, tore through the Devourer formation. Each explosion opened holes in space-time, revealing the terrible dimensions where the creatures truly lived. But for every Devourer they destroyed, 2 more appeared from the Central Intelligence. The massive entity was creating new creatures faster than the Infinity could kill them. "We're not going to make it to the target," Torres said, watching the damage report scroll across her screen. "They're overwhelming us." Morrison made the hardest decision of his life. "Amy, prepare to ram the Central Intelligence. Load all our remaining quantum warheads into the forward torpedo tubes and set them for manual detonation." "Captain, that's suicide. This whole mission was suicide. At least this way we take that thing with us." Dr. Gray looked up from her station. "Jake, I'm detecting something strange. The Central Intelligence is trying to communicate with us." "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English, but with an accent that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Humans, you have traveled far to die. Why do you resist? Your species could serve us as others have." Morrison activated the ship's communication system. "Because someone sent an SOS and we answered. We don't abandon people who ask for help. The Keepers are dead. Their ring world burned with their final star. You cannot save them. No, but we can make sure their sacrifice meant something." The Infinity plowed through the Devourer formation, taking massive damage but pushing forward toward the Central Intelligence. Torres worked frantically to keep the engines running, while Cooper fired every weapon they had. "1 minute to impact," Torres announced. "All hands, prepare for collision. It's been an honor serving with you all." The Central Intelligence grew larger on the view screen, its alien surface covered with cities and structures that defied understanding. But as they approached, Morrison could see something else. Scars on the creature's hull, evidence of previous battles with species that had fought back. "Humanity will not be the first to challenge you," Morrison said into the communicator. "But will be the last." The Infinity struck the Central Intelligence at full speed, driving deep into its core before the quantum warheads detonated. The explosion tore the massive creature apart from the inside, sending shockwaves across multiple dimensions. In the blast, Morrison saw flashes of all the galaxies the Devourers had consumed, all the civilizations that had died in darkness. But he also saw something else. Light returning to dead stars, planets warming as their suns came back to life. The destruction of the Central Intelligence was freeing the energy the Devourers had stolen, returning it to the universe. In the solar system, Admiral Ward watched in amazement as the attacking Devourers suddenly stopped moving. The creatures, that had seemed unstoppable moments before, now drifted helplessly in space, their coordination gone. "All stellar weapons, fire," Ward ordered. The converted stars erupted in cascades of quantum energy, destroying the remaining Devourers in bursts of dimensional fire. In minutes, the threat that had consumed galaxies was reduced to scattered debris floating around the sun, but the cost was visible to everyone on Earth. Where once the night sky had been filled with stars, now vast regions showed only darkness. The stellar weapons had saved humanity, but they had also changed the galaxy forever. President Hayes stood in her office, looking up at the night sky through the window. The stars that remained seemed brighter somehow, as if they were shining with renewed purpose. On her desk lay a message from the deep space monitoring stations. Across the galaxy, dead stars were beginning to burn again. Humanity had answered an ancient SOS and paid the price in darkness. But they had also learned something important about themselves. When someone called for help, they would answer. No matter how far they had to travel, no matter what it cost, they would come. The galaxy would remember that, long after the last human star had burned out. In the void between worlds, in the spaces where light had returned to darkness, the story would be told of the young species that heard a cry for help and change the universe forever. Humanity had come when called, and though the stars had gone dark, their light would never fade.